So trannies. No, I'm kidding. When you grow up in the city, you grow up in a neighborhood. But when you grow up in the suburbs, like I did, you grow up in what's called a development. And there is a massive linguistic difference between these two things. Because the word neighborhood engenders feelings of community, home, warmth. And the word development, yes, I agree with you, voice. And the word I can't see it. The word development is a word that we reserve almost exclusively for bad news. There's been a development. That has never been followed by something good. There's been a development. It's a girl. It doesn't happen. You know, worker uprisings. They're a development. You know, civil unrest is a development. Tumors are literally a development, right? Behind my development growing up, my literal development, not my tumor, behind my development, there was a field, right? Or I guess you could call it an as yet undeveloped patch of land. If an adult looked at it, they wouldn't have looked at it twice. It was a 50-yard stretch of kind of crappy, pockety grass that dipped down to a kind of a sewage access tunnel. Like, don't laugh at my field. So I don't laugh at my field. Now, again, like an adult wouldn't be impressed by this, but when you're a kid and you grow up in the suburbs and you see something where there is nothing else, it becomes a canvas for your imagination. And so for me and for my cousin Matthew, who was my age at the time, I was about 12, this was a wonderland of opportunity, right? The field wasn't a field, it was a battlefield upon which we could fight countless imaginary ninjas, and I have laid waste to scores of them. And the sewage access tunnel wasn't a tunnel at all, but instead it was the wide maw of a dark and foreboding cave, from which belched this strange and mysterious sound that became a fixation for me and Matthew. This odd recurrent cadence. Du-dum, du-dum, du-dum. Now, like any 12-year-old, Matthew and myself, we both wanted to explore this, and so we eked like little mice into this cave, but it was so dark and the dum-dum was so loud that we were too afraid and we ran away. And for the better part of a year, Matthew and I explored this cave together, desperate, increasingly desperate to understand what the source of this sound was. But we could never do it, because we were always too afraid. That Christmas, my mother did something incredibly, exquisitely stupid. She gave me a bow and arrow. And I know, because it's basically like a starter kit for a sociopath, right? But, which I'm not, I'm quite lovely. But I'm a narcissist. You know, in defense of my mother, this bow and arrow was like, it was candy apple red, right? It was plastic. And the arrow itself was fletched, with neon green plastic feathers, and it was tipped with a ball bearing. So the only way I was gonna kill anybody with this thing is if I unstrung the bow and strangled them to death with it, right? Not gonna happen. I'm too lazy, frankly. So, the thing is, though, is that a bow, even a plastic one, is a weapon, and a weapon is something that you don't give to a boy, you give a weapon to a man, right? And a man, or a woman, is a person who faces the fear that a boy or a girl runs away from. And so, when I was given this on Christmas Eve, and when I unwrapped it in front of Matthew, who was right there, it wasn't just a bow, it was a talisman. And it conferred upon me a kind of strength that I never thought I would have. And Matthew and I look, and we share a look, and we have an entire conversation in this look, which is, let's go kill that fucking thing. So as my mother and father and my aunt and uncle get into a conversation, Matthew and I slip out the door, and we crunch our way toward this cavern. I knock the arrow, and Matthew turns on his flashlight, and I admit I was more prepared than he. And pressed together out of cold and terror, the two of us eke our way slowly into this cavern. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that you can hear, but it's the kind of quiet that lets you know how loud you are, right? Because you can hear I could hear myself digesting my dinner. I could hear my own heartbeat, and I could hear every crack of ice under my feet echoing off the concrete walls of this cavern. And yet the one thing I couldn't hear was the heartbeat of whatever it was in there, that dum 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 dum. It wasn't there. And because of that, Matthew and I were able to eat our way deeper than we'd ever gotten before, and we never found what was there. We never found that creature that we were so afraid of. And just when we got to the point where we thought that it was never there in the first place, it had always been in our imagination, suddenly exploding over top of my head, right there, I hear dum-dum, dum-dum, and I lose my fucking mind. Matthew and I shriek like tea kettles. He drops his flashlight, and I let loose the arrow, but not aimed up at where the monster is, but down the tunnel where it clatters pathetically into the dark. I'm about to die. I'm 12 years old. I look young for my age. And I'm going to die, eaten by some kind of creepy sewer monster. But I need to face it, I need to see it, because that bow made me a man, it made me an adult, and I'm gonna die on my feet, not die screaming like a little boy with pee in his pants. And so I reached down, and I grabbed the flashlight, and I wheeled it above my head so that I can see, I can look face to face at the thing that has so terrified me for so long. And what do I see? I see a manhole cover. My brain does the kind of quick calculus that only brains can do, and immediately I understand it. There was no monster, it was just a manhole cover. And that da-dum, da-dum sound wasn't a monster at all, but it was something mundane. It was a car driving over the manhole cover. That was 20 years ago. I'm 33 now, or I'll be 33 at the end of the month. And I have learned that there are no monsters that are not people. I've grown that much. That said, excuse me, I'm still afraid of the dark. And I'm proud of that because it's terrifying. But when I go to bed at night and I move through my apartment turning out lights behind me, I can hear the dark behind me. And I even run a little bit like a little cockroach to my bed. My girlfriend's here tonight if you're interested. She's got a curly head and she can corroborate this. Thank you, baby, I love you. But even now at 33, when I get to my bedroom, before I can get into bed, I have to turn around and I have to face that dark. And I have to see what's behind me. But now, the dark is all I see. Because there aren't any monsters. And there isn't anything out there. It's just the dark. Thank you.